Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's BA Insights. In today's session, we're talking about how to set up BA practice. Once again, I'm very pleased to be joined by three excellent guests to join me and talk about this topic, very interesting topic, I might say. So, without further ado, before we start, I'd like to do some introductions. And I want to, David, could I start with yourself, please?
Certainly. Thank you, John. Hello, everyone. My name is David Vrbanek. I have been a practicing BA for just over 19 years, so it explains a lot of the gray hair that you see here. And have also been teaching business analysis courses for the last 11 years across various institutions here in the Toronto, Canada area. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, David. And I must say, I'm a big fan of the grey look, as you probably understand.
Very distinguished.
Yeah. Tertius, over to you, sir.
Hi, thanks for inviting me. Tertius Pick, currently in South Africa. As you can see, grey hair as well. I think I'm a poster child for that at the moment. Yeah, I've been involved with business analysis for the past 15 years in various capacities. You know, the latter part managing a BA practice, also business relationship management. Working predominantly in industry, in the mining industry. As of late, I've been doing a bit of consulting, and I'm on the verge of relocating and starting a new practice in Germany. So looking forward to that.
Well, certainly, good luck to that on that, Tertius. We'll look forward to hearing from you when you move a little bit closer to the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, but welcome. And last but not least, Jennifer.
Yes, first of all, I guess I'm the closest to the UK at the moment. I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia, way over on the east coast of Canada. I colored my hair last night, so the gray is gone. Otherwise, I'd be starting with the gray as well.
It's great for the video, I should say.
I've been a BA for around 20-ish years, both officially and unofficially. And the last 4 years, I've been leading the BA team at a consulting company based out of the Maritimes here called Mariner Innovations.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jennifer. And thank you, everybody. It seems like I've definitely got the right audience to talk about setting up a BA practice. And perhaps on that basis, if I can start first question to you, David, in terms of what are the essential foundation components in setting up a BA practice, in your opinion?
Well, from my experience, John, it has a lot to do with how you would go through a similar construct for an actual project, right? Thinking through everything in the beginning from a vision and a strategy. What is it we're trying to accomplish here? What is the boundaries within this organization that we have? What's its context, right? Its circumstances, its constraints, its conditions that you have to work in. But some of the more common sort of components that I've seen and I've used myself is setting up a governance framework. So how our policy is going to be set, how our decisions going to be made. Talent management is going to be a big part, right? How are we going to bring in folks and have a succession plan for them that they can follow and set a career path from a junior BA level all the way up through to a lead BA level or BA manager, if you will. Classic thing that people think about with BAs comes to documentation standards, right? Are we going to set up templates or not, right? Whether we're waterfall, agile, or somewhere in between, what are those practices? How are we going to share knowledge? How are we going to do lessons learned that not only within the project or after each iteration in an agile-based approach, but to the broader BA team so that everyone can benefit from that? Tools and technologies, naturally, right? What are we going to be using? Are there standards for, process modeling versus entity relationship modeling, whatever the case may be? And then thinking of things like change management, continuous improvement. How do we keep evolving, right? How do we keep growing as a practice? So those have been the foundational components I've seen and used.
Excellent, David. Yeah, really solid start there, I'm sure, and I definitely touched on a few topics I had written down beforehand. But I'll take my slot in a little while. Tertius, over to you, please.
Yeah, I think key to the answer to this is the definition of a BA practice, because it's got so many kind of nuances. If you're setting up like a community of practice, then obviously the steps you will be taking is different from your classical kind of a professional group within the organization, right? I think and the BA practice term nowadays is bandied about in the general term, right? But it might constitute different strokes for different folks. So, depending on the application and the entry point in terms of formalizing your business analysis practice in an organization, your steps might be different. If you're looking at something more informal, like a BA, community of practice, or just getting some kind of knowledge sharing going, or just kind of getting that cohesiveness feeling, then I think your attention would be focused on the practitioners per se, and steps, getting them to play a role in your community of practice, or knowledge sharing, etc., and so on. However, if you want to formalize it into an organizational structure, then obviously the steps that you follow would be different and more structured. I think one of the key things is to kind of have that awareness and senior management side for the need for change, for the need to the reason for this to exist. Because I think we're going to step into challenges soon, but I think one of the key things is you can't have a half-baked BA practice without proper management buy-in. So having those, as David pointed out quite rightly, so having that kind of terms of reference, applying yourself in terms of what the BA practice is actually going to achieve. What's the value proposition? How are you going to, constitute a vision for what you want to achieve, right? Those things are key foundational steps to kind of establishing it from an organizational perspective. And obviously then you've got like in-betweens, in the spectrum, because I think I highlighted the kind of two, what I would view the extremities of this. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it certainly does, and it complements the story that David put together as well, in terms of sharing those different aspects that have to come together to act as that foundation. And it's interesting to talk about, I think, talk about the community and the practice as well. And it'd be good to get a view as to how we see, whilst we see the practice being sometimes different from the community, I also sometimes see that the community is part of the practice as well.
Exactly.
As well, I view it.
Yeah, it often, if you have a proper practice, then it encapsulates lots of these kind of more foundational community of practice steps, etc., and so on. Up to the point of even your center of excellence type of approach.
Yeah, excellent. And Jennifer.
So with where I'm focused is more on that community side. So we took a similar approach in getting the community set up initially, which was what's the purpose of this community? And we really wanted to focus on engagement. Thinking of a consulting company where your consultants are all out working for clients, how do we keep them engaged with our company? And so that was our main goal. So we focused on regular meetings. We've got some coaches in place as well. So you've got somebody to go to bounce ideas off of. And we've got some centralized training ideas for people. So it's really becomes like, community by its definition, a place where we can bounce ideas off of, but not formalized yet. To the point of templates, simply because of the nature of the business, where it's usually clients are coming saying, here's our process, we want somebody to come in and help us out. But that's part of our plan, is to evolve to, we come out with set of templates with a plan in place for specific projects.
And that sort of resonates quite a lot with me, Jennifer, actually. We've got, as a consultant myself, quite a lot of the time we work with clients to help them set up their BA communities or their BA practices. And then I think it's easy sometimes to disregard your own organisation and not do the things that you're preaching to your clients. I'm pleased to say it's not the case at Capco. We do have a very good, I think, BA practice, if I say so myself. But it's very much taking the lessons that we've been discussing with clients over the years and making sure that we make those a feature of our own practice as well. And what the view we've taken is that, there's loads of things that we would like to do, but to try and pick some of those more foundational things to get us up and running. And certainly what David was saying at the start in terms of treating it like a project, thinking about the scope, getting the buy-in, figuring out where in the organisation the practice sits to make sure it's not just just nothing more than just just a mascot that doesn't really do anything. It just looks like a badge. To make sure it's got some real value. But then to think about how we can bring the community together, but also to use it as a driver for client initiatives as well. So we've thought, I think, in the first basis around what are the services that we offer as a capability, what are the internal training that we provide internally to help people be able to deliver those services. We think about career pathways as some options as another thing as well, to help people recognise their level and how they can contribute both to the internal community and practice and externally to clients as well. And we found that these are quite helpful views, or have been helpful views for us. If I take the service catalogue, those are things sit beneath it in terms of our practice that almost like the window into it to some degree. And I think that the last thing that I'd probably mention is that we make sure we've got a home so that like we're a SharePoint site or a team site in our case, where anyone in the organisation can find out more information about the practice as well. And I know I think Tertius, I think you brought up the point, possibly David, about then communicating and making sure that everyone's aware of the practice as well. And I'm sure I know we'll have a question about that later as well. Good. That certainly says I feel like we've covered a broad range of topics in terms of those foundational elements that would sit within a BA practice. I guess it'd be good to see on a slightly different note as to maybe practices or things you might avoid when setting up a practice. And perhaps Tertius, so I can start with you first.
So many, right? I think just based on experience, a few that I would kind of offhand kind of highlight is I think expectation management from a stakeholder perspective, especially if you have a more formal approach, make sure that what you promise to achieve with your practice is actually deliverable or achievable, right? Measurable, that you have a before and after to measure against. Because if the organization is going to expend resources to this, then obviously there's a bit of a kind of expectation, right? And I think it's very, very easy to kind of have unrealistic expectations that setting up the practice overnight is going to make every project fly through, and all matters related to kind of project failure, whether it be can ascribe to project business analysis or not, is going to be fixed by the practice, which is a problem on its own. So proper expectation management and whatever that involves is, I think, quite important. Also think, in terms of the analysts themselves, if you want to put structure and formality and process to business analysis, which are all good things, right, to a certain extent, there's something to be said and against it as well. But, a practice normally does tend to go towards kind of a bit of standardization or normalization of your work. You need to put something in place that's valuable, right? If you have artifacts and processes and steps and red tape that you create that the analyst does not feel value in, then you're going to have passive resistance, and essentially it's going to negate whatever benefits you're going to try to put up in your practice. So it's a bit of a dance that you need to have to make sure that you can balance that out. But it all stems in making sure that the analysts are kind of coming along, and basically it's a push, not a pull type of situation. I think the other thing I'd like to kind of mention is that in terms of measuring and those measures that you put up in terms of establishing and measuring the value of your practice, it's very important to rather tend to look at something where business analysis is part of the greater outcome, and not try to kind of create measures that try to kind of measure the benefit of business analysis in a container, right? But rather see it as kind of how did it benefit the whole of the project or the endeavor, right? And smooth it out in that, because it becomes very difficult to kind of measure the benefit of business analysis in isolation, right? So that's one of the, and I find that oftentimes it's a trap you fall in, where you try to kind of, from a setting up a practice perspective, try to kind of, enforce kind of measures that can justify, and sometimes it kind of backfires, right? In terms of, showing tangible benefit, even though there's huge holistic benefit, small measurable benefit might be, misconstrued, not properly measured, and might not seem as valuable as it might actually be end of the day. Yeah, I think those are the key things I think of to that one.
I mean, that point on value definitely and benefits sort of really resonates. We had a session, BAInsights session only, what would have been last week, I guess, on or a few weeks ago, on benefits analysis as well, or benefits of business analysis. And somebody, I think it might be Linda, made the point very, very well that the value of business analysis comes as part of the whole, and making sure that it's viewed in that sense, and in exactly the same way you've described there. So it shows as well that one of the foundational points of analysis and things to avoid is treating the practice as if it exists and can exist in isolation. Yeah. Now, Jennifer, I'd like your perspective on things to avoid, please.
I'm not sure how much more I can add, but definitely I think trying to build, and you may have already said this, but I think trying to build too much too quickly, formalizing too much too quickly. So when we think about treating it as a project, treat it more as an agile project or a startup. Build a little bit, see what works. And we did a fair amount of that in the beginning. How often do we want to meet? Is it mandatory for people to be involved in this community? Which in our case it is, right? Because it's solving the problem. It's solving is ensuring that people feel engaged with the company. Again, to the point about it's not in isolation. We had a lot, especially early on, a lot of conversations with the change management community. Where do the process people sit? So, and that's where it's a little bit different, possibly with us, where it's not just a BA community that I'm dealing with. We've got communities for all the different disciplines, but there isn't any one that's 100%. Like, we've got BAs that have a specialty in data analysis. We've got change managers who've got the business analysis background. So none of this is in isolation. So the sharing, there's your engagement, but there's also that sharing of information. It can't be isolated. It can't be restricted to that one community. It does need to be open to all.
I imagine with that as well, Jennifer, the fact you've got individuals, or whether they're inside or outside the organisation, that have an interest in different camps, whether it's business analysis, project delivery, etc., that they bring with them that perspective as well, so that you're making sure that you're not just that you aren't acting in a silo, as it were.
Exactly. Yeah, and that was, I guess that's another piece, and it's probably more on the not what to avoid, but the what to do. Is we've got the people who are kind of officially part of the BA community, but it's an open invitation to anybody else in the company to join our community meetings, have access to our resources. So we're BAs, we like to share.
And speaking of sharing, David, would you like to share your view on that question?
To be honest, I would be only doing just a reiteration of what Tertius and Jennifer said. You do it in an agile-based approach, iterate and learn from those iterations, right? Take your lessons learned and what worked well, what could have been improved, and really get the buy-in of your stakeholders for this community, whomever they may be, the actual BAs themselves, outside the change management community, to Jennifer's point, the PM community, whomever, and make sure that value is provided each and every step of the way. And that way it just gains more and more value to everyone in the organization, and people are that much more willing to participate, to grow, to get involved, whatever actions we need them to do. So yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up for me.
And I think, I mean, on top of that, I think the point I might add really is that really is the advice to the practice lead, and try not to do everything all themselves, and and by involving a broader team to contribute, to participate, then actually they'll benefit from a wide range of inputs and perspectives to make sure we are really doing what we should be doing for the community and for our clients as well. I guess my second point very much relates to the first, in terms of if you are having individuals within the organisation who are contributing outside their day job perhaps to the wider practice, then I'm very keen to make sure that they are recognised for that and that they get the accolades, rather than it appear that it's just the lead that's done all this on their own. But yeah, I can't say much more than what the three of you added on terms of what to avoid. I suppose with that in mind, then, I mean, in terms of the next question, I'll go to Jennifer first on this one. In terms of, are there any challenges perhaps that you've come across when setting up a practice, or perhaps in your case, Jennifer, a community, and how might you have overcome?
So I was very fortunate. I joined a company who already had decided that communities were necessary. So I got to come in and basically work together on defining the value and how we're going to deliver. So it really kind of came in after the decision was made to have the communities. We already had buy-in from leadership that this is a necessity. I would say that the biggest challenge that a lot of organizations are facing is getting that buy-in from leadership that this is a valuable thing to have. As a result, you end up with a few different groups of people sharing some information, aren't aware of who else might be able to contribute or who else they can lean on, because they don't have that central place. To overcome, I guess, that challenge is really in let's do this kind of off the books to get started. Let's show some value and then pitch it to management. So I would say the biggest challenge is getting that leadership buy-in.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that, Jennifer. So excellent start on that question. And David, any view from you?
Yeah, the challenge that I experienced the most was staying current. At times, whatever we put together as repositories would get out of date, either in whole or in part. And that was due to, those practice leads and anyone else that took on responsibilities just getting consumed with competing priorities, whether they were project priorities or other organizational priorities, and therefore, getting time pulled away. It's not, this is not a revenue generating center within the organization, so it tends to be the thing that gets pushed to the wayside first before everything else. So how have we overcome that? Making conscious efforts to put it on the agenda so it's talked about at the next group meeting, and what actions are we going to take? Again, incremental but progressive steps to making sure we get back on track, and what do we need to tackle first that's most out of date. So again, treating it very much like a project, and how you would tackle situations like that in an actual endeavor like a project. But yeah, I'll preach this to our stakeholders and whatnot, to stay current and always look at the latest and greatest information before making a decision. And we just have to do that ourselves. But we're human, right? We make mistakes, we fall behind, we have overflowing plates of work, and things can get out of hand. So we just have to remember the value, remember the reasons we put it together, and put the effort to get it back in shape.
And at least with the beauty of setting up a practice rather than maybe a project that's got a finite existence, that we know that the things we're putting in place are going to have that longer term existence. So I know
Certainly,
as much as we can, obviously we try to build in that ability to let it evolve and let it change over time. But I know it's not always easy to do that. And Tertius, to finish with you on that question.
Yeah, I think Jennifer and David said it all, but I think one thing that I found to be challenging is if you set up a new practice within an organization, typically one of the key challenges I dealt with is reporting lines. How do you, if you have BAs that are kind of, in an open structure reporting to project managers, and there's different ways of reporting, etc. How do you create a relationship between the practice and the BAs? Do you kind of consume it? Do you do org restructure in order to kind of have your BAs part of the practice, and they they render a service, or is there a dotted line kind of approach and so on, and having formality around the relationship between the BA and the practice. It can be very challenging, right? And you will have active resistance from parties in a situation like that. You know, some PMs would not like to kind of lose full control over his team of BAs. Some BAs would feel that the autonomy is kind of, affected by forming part of the practice as well. So the key to this is kind of, from a management buyer perspective, making sure that, the correct formality commensurate with what level of practice you're going to create in the organization is there. Right, but following it through in terms of the formality created to kind of make sure that the practice actually is able to speak to that person in an org structure perspective, but also, and I think this is an important point, as I think David pointed out, the overhead associated with this, which is non day-to-day work, in terms of collaboration and learning and contributing and so on, needs to be obviously somehow recognized as well as work, right? As something that's valuable for the organization, not so much the endeavor, right? So end of the day, those are two things that I felt were very challenging. And then those people that work in the practice, right? Like for instance, the practice manager, etc., and so on, having formality and having recognized kind of a role there and the work they do, I think there's a caveat there that if it's a side, if it's a bit of a passion project and it's not really part of his day job, it's very easy to kind of neglect that and put it by the wayside. Not only for the individual contributing BAs, but those people that kind of form the core of it, and those are the kind of the management structure of your practice need to have more formality, written into their job descriptions as this being part of their work. So I think that's quite important. And, from experience perspective, those were the key challenges we had to deal with.
And those structures and around the org structure as an example is really something that does resonate with me in terms of, we've got different, almost like a matrix in terms of responsibilities and relationships, and that as any individual in our firm, they're not necessarily just associated to one capability or one practice or one domain. Most of the time there's many. They might be on projects with different project managers as well. So it's just making sure that there's a very clear view from individuals, whether they're people that are in the community that need their support, or people that are speaking to clients about our services, be it a BA service, really in terms of understanding where the responsibility lies. So in our case, when it comes to the individuals in the teams, we're very much there to support them and learn from them. If we're, so when I say learn, I mean, adapt to what they're seeing on the ground, what they're seeing in their projects, the sort of support they need, so we can spread it out more widely, but also learn from them in terms of what they're hearing from their clients in terms of things that we should be focusing on as a capability to not just help that client, but possibly help others as well. So there's and I think there's a lots of moving parts, I think, in terms of, which is becoming very clear, I think, as we've been talking, and it was very clear to me as well, fairness, before that, but I think that's a big challenge in terms of trying to maintain all those moving parts, keep them related to each other and stop them falling apart, really. And I suppose to me, whilst it's very difficult to keep every moving part connected at all times, what's been quite helpful actually is understanding what your foundation pieces are and how they have to be remained glued, or at least like loosely coupled if that is appropriate, so that everything else that sits on the periphery, they have at least something in the practice to connect to.
Yep.
So that's been my finding anyway. I guess somewhat related actually to what we've been talking about is really a question in terms of how the BA practice can continue to adapt and evolve to challenges and changing demand. So I wondered, perhaps on that one, David, I can start with you on that question, please.
I think it goes to the mantra, one of the mantras that I like to follow myself, which is never stop learning. I think as individuals, we need to continue to grow as BAs and stay current with the latest methodologies, the latest technologies, and that should apply to the communities of practice or the centers of excellence in which we participate, right? We all have to continue to learn, and that's why I think learning and development is one of those foundational components of such communities, is so that we do keep learning, we do keep growing, we don't fall by the wayside and do waterfall forever in a day when, we know it's just not the right fit in some project context. So just never stop learning as individuals, never stop learning as communities or small groups, and just share that knowledge out as much as you can. I think that's what really benefits everyone. And unfortunately, it's one of the things that's also pushed to the wayside first when other priorities come up. But it's, to me, one of the most valuable things that we can do for ourselves and for our communities is to continue to learn and grow and develop, so everyone benefits from gaining that knowledge and then sharing that knowledge out through their project deliveries. So yeah, never ever stop learning. That's the lesson that I've learned over the years and try to practice over and over again.
I mean, and that point there definitely resonates with me. I mean, in terms of, historically, you might do a project post-implementation review. There might be lessons learned from that. And in the wrong environment, those lessons just get talked about. And maybe the individuals might carry them on to other projects, but the organisation or the project doesn't seem to do too much with them. So the benefit of having a BA practice is so that, we can create a home for these lessons and encourage people that are on projects where they are learning, whether it's from positive or negative experience, to feed lessons back into the practice, so we can, at the very least, log what those lessons are and make them available to whether it's clients or the organisation or to the community, so they don't have to go through some of the pain that we might have gone through or others gone through in the first place. So yeah, so it certainly seems like that's probably the bit I would add as I jumped in and took my turn a little bit early. But Tertius, your view on it?
I think David made a few great points. Anything I can think of to add is, creating a bit of a culture of collaboration between yourself and the clients and those that kind of work with you is quite important. What we did is, besides the practice, on the community of practice side of things, there was intentional effort to involve people from outside the business analysis domain, right? So we had project managers and specialists and developers and, the whole shebang there, and tried to kind of, the level of knowledge sharing was not constrained to business analysis per se, right? It's learning from each other. So, whether it was business strategy, getting someone to, at a COP level, demonstrate what our strategy is for the next year, or, someone from the project management side kind of do some knowledge sharing in terms of project management, and then involving those people in business analysis again, schooling them and making them understand, what business analysis is about, getting them to kind of gain better knowledge. And I'm quite sure Jennifer is going to be authority on this, but that understanding of what business analysis is about, right? And this kind of more cohesive community kind of feeling, we're all in this together type of thing, really helps a lot in terms of getting the BAs to understand what they're dealing with, and the stronger bonds you have between the various stakeholders obviously inevitably means that they understand better in terms of the shifting environment around them and so on. It makes them just be much more aware of the business environment, the context in which they are find themselves, and if something should change, the BA is normally very much more agile and able to kind of pivot around that than if they were working in a little bubble.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jennifer, I'm sure you will, as Tertius rightly pointed out, you probably are authoritative on that one.
Yeah, so one of the things that we do, and I think we've done well from the beginning, is I mentioned earlier the monthly meetings. There's always a topic, and what we do is we invite the community. Does anybody have a topic to share? And quite often it's, hey, there's this new chat GPT thing we've been exploring. And interestingly enough, we also have like about 10 minutes where we have a little breakout session. We give a topic and break into smaller groups and chat about that topic. we've had AI as that topic 3 times in the last few months, and it's always a hot topic. So and we still have varying levels of people who have experience with that. So again, it's, oh wow, what can we share with each other? Similar to what Tertius was saying, bringing others into these meetings as well. What's going on with the company? What's going on with our clients? Where are the trends? So leaning on the marketing team and the sales team, what's happening out there? What are people looking for? So we can kind of get ahead of it and be ready for it. So we have a client come in and wants an AI specialist. We've got people ready to go.
I think that point of remaining connected with all the different consumers or participants really is some really good advice. At least then it means we're aware of what's happening, what the needs are on the practice, how the practice needs to evolve or could evolve, and therefore puts us on the front foot to be able to kickstart that evolution or maintain it. Anyway, I would say. I feel like in terms of adding any points myself, I think we feel like we've probably spoken about most of them, but I think just to re-emphasise a point we just touched on with David really is that I think it's just about trying to build in that versatility and adaptability and just recognising that things will change over time and we try to make things, if we can, as sort of like modular as is logical without making them too modular and therefore creating extra work. But that's certainly something that we've tried to do anyway. But as I said, it all, as I said previously anyway, these things, respectively modular, have to have that sort of like central spine that they hang to. So in our case, a service catalogue, amongst a few other things, I would say.
We also have to, sorry, John, we also have
right.
to remember, just one quick point. We also have to remember that all these other colleagues of ours are our internal customers. Right. If we really keep that mindset going, then we realize that we're doing this work for these people and they're going to do work for us. We're all internal customers to each other. So if we take that more customer centric mindset, then we are that much more encouraged, I think, to do a better job, to do a higher quality output for the work, because these people are in fact going to ultimately review how we're doing. And more companies are adopting that sort of 360-degree performance feedback, and so you want to make sure that your internal customers are happy with the work that you do. So just a quick thought there.
Point. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and I feel like we've sort of touched on a couple of the topics that conveniently sort of make up the last question or two, which I'm going to sort of merge into one and sort of talk about them anyway. In terms of that cross-functional collaboration, that need to partner with other practices and other parts of the organisation, as well as really thinking about our customers and how we can ensure there's value in customers and continued satisfaction, I guess, amongst the customers. So it feels like Tertius, you picked on a couple of things a moment ago when we were talking about the last response in terms of that connection to those other teams. Is there anything further you might add either on that point in terms of how to stay connected with those other practices or groups, or indeed how to maintain or enhance or even appreciate that level of satisfaction or value?
Yeah, no, apologies. I think we could kind of bled over into the subsequent questions, but I think if I were to kind of just dig a little bit deeper into kind of collaboration, if you have a bit of a structure there, I think one of the key things for two things I'd like to highlight is the importance of two disciplines with which business analysts, I think, can derive great benefit from collaboration, and that's your BRM, your business relationship management role, which I'm a keen proponent of the fact that business analysis and BRM are very closely related, and that some of your BA should actually fulfill that role, be it in an informal or a formal role, right? Because that really helps a lot in terms of collaboration and being closer to the business side of things, being closer to your architects on the technical side, right? I think there's sometimes a huge kind of a bit of a gap between the business analysis function and the business and system architect side of things, right? And having close collaboration between your BA and your architect is something that's of huge value. If you can, if you have that formal positions within the organization and it exists, it helps a lot. And then something I have no personal experience of, but I've heard of this, and I think it's a great approach, is to, when you have junior BAs coming on board and so on, maybe diversifying their function initially, right, beyond just business analysis, kind of deploying them within the broader organization to assist with non-BA type of things, but getting familiar with the workings of the organization, essentially understanding the business. So we're talking about sending them to the shop floor and assisting, the broader IT team, for instance, in stuff that normally would not relate to kind of business analysis. Surely, purely for two reasons: getting closer to, building relationships with the business client, end of the day, but also understanding how the wheels turn, how the little cogs of that organization turns. Because I think that's kind of, you can be the best business analyst on earth, but if you don't understand the business, right, then you're at a major disadvantage, right? So, when, you can do this at a foundational level, right in the beginning with your junior business analyst, and you've got the bandwidth and the levity to do that, then I think it's something that's brilliant that you can do, in order to kind of, stimulate not only collaboration but understanding and proper bonds with the organization. So there's, I think that is what I would like to add.
Yeah, there's definitely food for thought there, I think, in terms of those organisations where there's a number of individuals in the BA practice, maybe a number of juniors, in that, you can almost envisage them going into different parts of the organisation and learning about it, but then feeding some stuff back. And I know there's nothing better than first-hand experience of what's going on, but at least by being able to feed back a flavour of what they've seen, is at least helps them become adaptable. Specifically,
some business analysis tasks, like, for instance, job task observation, right, and those kind of things, can be, in a collaborative effort in a BA team. Could be, certain more junior members can actually kind of perform that function, do feedback, and it's a kind of a double whammy where, they hone their business analysis skills, but it also kind of puts them in front of the client, in front of business, getting them to kind of start knowing these people and building those relationships, which is invaluable at later stages when they, move through the ranks of business analysis.
Absolutely. And David, I'm going to hand over to you to that question on the basis that you also touched on that topic previously.
Yeah, no, I would like to just start by adding to Tertius's point with two words: job shadowing. And I see it at all levels of BAs. In fact, that's where I'm at in my full-time workplace right now, is one of the initial proposals I made, that we start doing that at all levels, because the domain that we're in particular, business domain, is rather complex, but also has its fair share of nuances as well, that there isn't one subject matter expert that knows it all. Someone knows this and someone else knows that, and really can depend on your network of contacts and colleagues to be able to get the subject matter expertise you're looking for. And I want to try and eliminate that in some way, shape, or form by giving everyone the opportunity to go out there and experience the contact center, to experience the ops team, to experience, whoever deals with escalations on the client side, and shadow and just be a part of that. To your point, Tertius, as well, there's nothing that beats firsthand experience, but if I can be there, literally shadowing someone as they go through and handle a difficult client call or a difficult, a consumer call or whatever, then I'm getting that context, right? And that's what we revel in. That's what we absolutely need as BAs, is context, right? And again, circumstances, conditions, constraints. What is it about the problems that they face here, and how do they look here versus how they look at our competitor versus how they look at another sector or another industry? Most businesses have the same problems. It's just their context is what differs, right? And how do you tackle that particular context and get results there? So yeah, that's one of the things I'm looking to champion where I am right now, is just get us out there, get us shadowing, and then taking those lessons learned back. We meet bi-weekly as a larger BA team. I have a team of 6 BAs that work with me, and then there's another lead BA that has his own set of BAs, and the idea is to then come together whenever someone has had a shadowing opportunity at the next bi-weekly occurrence to come and share their experience, and that might encourage someone else to want to go and see that firsthand, or think of someone else that we could shadow with, and just let that domain knowledge just build and grow. And if we could find some way to capture it within our repository as lessons learned, then fantastic. But yeah, when there isn't enough already innately there within the BAs, we have to go out and we have to get it, just like we would to understand the business's needs for a particular project, right? We want to pull out, we want to elicit, we want to draw out that information to learn as much as we can and then apply it going forward. And so let's practice what we preach there and do it for ourselves.
Absolutely. And Jennifer, over to you on that question.
So I'm going to add on to that just another little twist on this. So you're putting your junior BA out and shadowing and learning about the business. We want to make sure they're learning about it using the context of a BA. So
Sure,
I understand
absolutely.
what you're doing. Why are you doing that? If that person can't answer it, there's something to look to dig into a bit further. But also in the context of these relationships and the cross collaboration, it's not a one-time thing, right? We've gone out, we've built some domain knowledge. A month later, something may have changed that we don't know about. So it's keeping in contact with those teams. Once we've built that relationship, let's keep that relationship going, so we're current on any of those things that may have changed that we weren't aware of.
Absolutely. And as those people have, their own sort of departmental communications or e-newsletters that they put out, ask if you could be part of that. Ask if you could be on the distribution list for that, so that you get that knowledge coming to you on a regular basis and say, oh, this changed. That reminds me, Jennifer, of an experience where we had someone on my team was looking for who do I speak to on the legal team to be a stakeholder within this particular feature that I'm working on. And in digging through and trying to find out, and I took it on myself because I was relatively new to the company at that time, and I wanted to learn and build my own network of contacts. And it turned out that it had changed, and that they had this regular forum by which they communicated as the legal team what was new, what was added, how do you put in new service requests for a legal representative. And once we learned that, my BA was satisfied. She got what she needed to do her work, and I shared that out with the broader team. And so many of them were surprised that legal had changed anything, because legal has just been legal for so long. What really changes? Yes, the law gets added to naturally, but in terms of just getting them involved, it's the same way. But no, they went about it as a department, changed their practices, brought in their own ticketing system to manage, what turns out to be a multitude of requests they got from various other business units within the organization, and they changed. But without reaching out and knowing, we would have never figured that out and known that it's there. And now we can stay in the loop as they make any future changes, so that we as the BA, again, have that current context of what's going on in the business domain and can apply it accordingly to our analysis.
That's right.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
That regular interlock of the different practices and groups is something that we can put in place fairly easily and practically by putting regular sessions in. Even if, if we take the legal example, even if the result of that regular interlock is nothing's changed this month or nothing's changed for the last few months, but when it does change, well, at least we're talking, and certainly from my perspective, I think Tertius touched on it a while ago, but when we're talking to perhaps the architecture community or the development community, in those regular sessions, find out what they're not getting from the BA practice, or are they seeing some practices in reality that are a little different than perhaps what the BA practice is advising should be happening.
Right. Sorry,
sorry, Jennifer, go
on. One more point on the architecture thing that kind of tweaked when Tertius was mentioning that. You've got your systems architects, you've got your business architects. They're the BAs. Do the system architects recognize or realize that they can call on a BA or a business architect for some of those things that they're trying to tackle on their own? So keeping that, what value can we add to not just what can they give us, but what can we give them?
That's it. And I think that takes us nicely back full circle almost to right at the start, to giving those stakeholders the transparency around what are the services, who is the BA capability, what can we deliver, what's the value on all those great points that you made previously, which I won't ask you to repeat. You'll be pleased to know. But I think that nicely and conveniently takes us full circle and to the end of the session as well. So I'd just like to thank each of you individually and collectively for your input, your insight, sharing some really interesting points and very, I mean, I've certainly learned, as I often do from these sessions. So thank you for that. And I look forward to speaking to you again in the future and hearing from you and hearing how you and your organisations have developed over time. I think maybe in the real short term, Tertius, to see how your move to Germany works out and be a bit closer to the UK at least.
Yep. Thank you. No, I'm very trepidatious and excited. So
wonderful.
we'll see how that pans out. Yeah.
Kudos to you on
More
your new
excited.
venture. Yes,
Thank
kudos.
you. Thanks for inviting. It was really nice to learn from you and collaborate. And it's always, from my perspective, so nice to see how enthusiastic and full of kind of sharing business analysts all on this discipline.
Absolutely.
BAs are the best. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.